On today's podcast, Stephen Bell. Today, Stephen has a successful business, runs his own gym and mentors other fitness professionals. But at 24, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. We discuss how he found himself there and how he rebuilt his life once released. We also talk about the massive growth in online fitness and its potential impact on youngsters fixated on how they look, and much more. Enjoy the conversation. Stephen, welcome to the podcast.
Mike, nice to be here. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Yeah, me too. You are somebody who sent me an email when we did a little shout out and said, who's got some kind of interesting tales to tell? And you sent me an email and immediately I thought, okay, this guy's straight away got some things to talk about, because you rattled through 4 or 5 different things that any one of them on their own almost could be, they would be worthy of long conversation. So in fact, let's start off there. You run me through a kind of a little potted history of what you've been up to, and as we go along, I'll kind of dive in with daft questions, because that's kind of my role, really.
Yeah, no problem. So from after school, I went to college for a little while. Then I started, I suppose the interesting bit started when I was 18. I started working on the doors. So I was doing security on nightclubs. That just come from nature of training in bodybuilding gyms. All the other lads were doing it, and then just got me a job there.
Actually, I got to dive in straight away, because I was going to ask exactly that. Okay. All the guys that work on doors appear to be mates from down the gym. It is pretty much as simple as that, is it? You know a guy who does it as well, and so suddenly you're doing it too.
Yeah, I believe these days there's a little bit more to it. But so I did a 1-day course. I think it was about £150 to get my SIA license at the time. It was called. I think it's still the same. 1-day course, go and do that, and then you're good to go. I totally wasn't ready to work on the doors. I was 18, thought I was massive because I trained at the bodybuilding gym, but wasn't. Just started going.
I got to say, already the idea that you can give an 18-year-old bodybuilder, who, with the greatest respect, is well, all 18-year-olds are meatheads anyway.
Well,
I mean, just by default, having been an 18-year-old, give them a 1-day course, stick them on a door, good to go.
Crazy.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
100%. Thankfully, the guys I worked with were all reasonably experienced and looked after me well. But yeah, it wasn't. I wouldn't recommend it for 18.
No. Okay. Yeah. Any 18-year-olds listening out there, or 17-year-olds can't wait to turn 18 so they can go and stand on a door and pretend they're in Roadhouse or something. Drop those ideas right now.
Yeah. So that was worked on the doors for 2, maybe just shy of 3 years. And then while I was doing that, I got an apprenticeship in BAE Systems. So that BAE Systems builds nuclear submarines and also fighter jets. So the jets are in Preston, and then in Barrow-in-Furness, where I'm from, that's where we do the nuclear submarines. So I got my apprenticeship in there, and that was 3 years long. And then I stayed 1 year after my apprenticeship, and then left after that to pursue the dream of personal trainer.
Actually, that's interesting. So you go into, actually, right. So how long did you spend working on submarines as an apprentice?
3 years as an apprentice to get the full qualification.
Right.
And then stayed a year beyond that.
So you do 4 years of engineering working on nuclear subs, and afterwards you think, I still want to teach people how to do bench press instead.
4 years work on nuclear subs sounds amazing. Like, it sounds really cool, but it's not.
It sounds more interesting than teaching people how to do the bench press. Yeah.
But no, it wasn't. It just wasn't for me. And I know it's great money. It was great because it was on my doorstep. Holiday pay, pensions, all that sort of stuff. It's, if you live in Barrow, basically you're working BAE Systems. It's just
right.
Around here. So just an obvious step. It was an easy way in. It's a good career. But it just every day I hated going to work. Like, genuinely hated going to work.
Okay.
And, I've said to a lot of people, like, the day that I decided I was never going back was one of the best days of my life. which kind of tells you, as we move on through this podcast, you'll see there's been some pretty bad days.
That sounds like the day I decided to quit school.
Right, okay.
I went back to do my sixth. I went to sixth form to do A levels, and on the very first day, the first lesson was geography. We learnt about tectonic plates.
Nice.
And I thought, I never need to know about tectonic plates, so I'm going to go home at lunchtime and I'm never going to come back.
Yeah, perfect.
And there endeth my education forever.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that, like, if you hate something so much, like, you definitely shouldn't carry on doing it. And I was in BAE, and I was looking around at the people around me that seemed to have been really sad, like as a general consensus. And I thought, I'm not being that guy that's been in here for 40 years, hated every day, and still does it. I was like, I just can't do it. So
it's frustrating because I hear that all the time from people that just, I just meet people and they're 45, 55, and yeah, the advice you want to give so badly is just get out. If you don't like it, do something else. But equally, you have to be realistic. If you are 45, for example, you got kids, you got mortgage, you got, and also you tend to have worked your way up. Even if I had this a little bit of financial services. I worked my way up to a point where I was doing okay, and when I would then, because I had no qualifications and anything else, if I looked around, if I left that, I'd literally be starting. I'd be going to. I'm not kidding, and no disrespect to people that work at ASDA, but I'd be going to someone like ASDA and saying, "Can I have a job, kind of stacking your shelves because I'm not qualified for anything else."
Yeah.
So although I hated it, until YouTube, I had nowhere to jump to. So you did the right thing while you were young enough to think, screw this.
Yeah.
You jump ship or jump sub.
Yeah, that's it. Jump sub, love it. Yeah, and then from there, started personal training. So as soon as I left there, I did my 6-week personal training course in Manchester, went to the local DW that it was at the time, started personal training from there, and became reasonably successful reasonably quickly. So because I was coming from the bodybuilding background, kind of skip through there, we'll go back to in a second, is that my main thing was body composition change and extreme transformation. So people that were either overweight and wanted to lose a lot of weight, or people that weren't in like the best shape but maybe they had Holly coming up or something like that. I started by running 8-week challenges, and it was just extreme body composition change. Who could change the most in 8 weeks? It's completely
out of interest. What year would this have been? Because that stuff plays well on social media nowadays, doesn't it? Was social media? Where are we in time at this point?
It was just kicking off. That will have been about 8 years ago, 2014, 2015.
Okay. So it wasn't, social media and fitness wasn't what it is now, but it was kind of
moving that way. Yeah. 2014, I think it was, into 15. So it was. There wasn't loads of options like there is now. So when I was doing that online. So it was the online transformation competitions. And then if people were in the local area that were partaking and they wanted PT sessions 1-to-1, then obviously I get in the gym. I was probably the only person in my area doing something like that. So became very successful very quickly because people were seeing the results, and it spiraled. But I was quite a small town and everyone kind of knew.
Sure.
So it went really well. If moving back in towards the bodybuilding thing, probably why it went so well and people were drawn to me for that is I was reasonably successful at bodybuilding. So in under 18 level, I'd come second at Mr. UK. I'd won Mr. UK. I'd come second at Mr. England. I'd come second at a Mr. Cumbria show locally. And then I came third at the NABEG England. That was all under 18 level.
Right.
Then moving into under 21 level, I come first at the Mr. Cumbria, and that gained me sponsorship to do the Mr. Universe. So that was paid for me to go and represent the UK at Mr. Universe. And I did terribly bad. I was dead last. I spoke to you about this last time. I finished dead last, and it was just so much diet fatigue. Like I'd been dieting for 6 months at this point. And I could not keep my hand out of the cookie jar. Everything went to shit, basically. I come dead last, but it
Actually, I think I joked when we chatted last time. I think I joked that you won the wooden protein scoop.
Literally, yeah. It was one of them. Like I shouldn't have been on that stage. Like I had to go because I've been sponsored to do it. But yeah, it was. When I look back, obviously, I wish I'd put more into it. But I was just that part. I just couldn't give any more. The diet should have ended before.
Actually, I got a question about bodybuilding training when you're young, because we can come on to this later on in more detail or more generally, but specific to you, the reason why I come on to it later is that bodybuilding, certainly when I was a teenager, was a thing. Everyone knew. I mean, so I was born in 73.
Yep.
So in, say, 1990, I'm 17, and I'm lifting weights, but I'm also swimming and I'm running, and I'm my kind of sporting heroes are, maybe Daley Thompson or something, kind of all-round athletes.
Yeah.
And I'm aware of Arnold, and I'm aware of Stallone, and that they're all motivational, but they're not things I would want to try and emulate, not really. And nor would many of my friends at that time. In fact, almost have been a little bit of a joke that you'd want to go and do. If you literally said, I want to do bodybuilding.
Yeah.
You might say, I'm going to go and lift some weights, but to say I want to be a bodybuilder would have been a funny thing. Now it's almost the thing.
Yeah.
So I'm interested, and also I'm also interested because I've got kids. My youngest now, they're getting on, but my youngest is 18. My oldest son is 23, 24. My daughter's a bit older, but my boys are in that sort of age where they could have gone down the kind of fitness road that they see on social media.
Yeah.
In a way, they haven't, almost because of what I do. They're kind of, I made fitness rather uncool for them because dad does fitness on YouTube. So what I'm curious about, bodybuilding at the level you're doing it requires the assistance of supplementation way beyond protein powder.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm curious what your kind of family thought of that, and whether I just wonder that, because I see nowadays, kids, 16, 17, and sometimes much younger, taking all sorts of stuff to get big.
Yeah.
And part of me just thinks, where's your mum and dad saying, stop that? I'm being very naive, or maybe I have a very privileged to have a nicer relationship with my kids, or at least a relationship where if my kids were doing that, I would actually, I don't know what I do. So you tell me, what was your situation? How did that play out with your folks?
It's an interesting one, because my dad's passed away now, but I was super close with my dad and super close with him. I still am to this day. And I joke that I tell my mum too much sometimes, because I'm a complete open book. I tell her everything. Back then at that stage, I certainly didn't tell her everything. She knows all this now. But I completely lied through my teeth to my mum and dad. I don't take steroids. I take testosterone boosters, and I take estrogen reduction tablets and things like that. And I think it was maybe just from their part that they weren't interested in bodybuilding. They don't have a clue about it. All they know is...
So they're not looking at your physique and thinking, that's not some testosterone booster from Holland and Barrett that he's using there.
I'm not too sure, purely because Steve's never really gone to the gym until he was about 16. And all of a sudden I'm going to the gym like 2-3 times a day. So from their standpoint, is this just what happens to a physique when you train?
Right.
And at the end of the day as well, when I was 18, 19, I wasn't huge. I didn't start on the steroids. Next year I'm walking through the door and I can't fit.
Yeah.
I probably thought I looked like that, but I definitely didn't.
Yes.
So yeah, whether they were aware of it and just didn't want to come, they didn't ask me anyway. It was very much, I can't remember a conversation where they asked me bluntly. And by the time I was about 21, I was open with it. It's there in my drawer, and that's what I do. And I was a bit half-faced with it, which is obviously not ideal. And it was very much the case of, be as safe as possible. It's something that they probably couldn't have stopped me doing by that age, at least.
Yeah. And I guess if they're not in that world, there might even be a bit of a loss as to the arguments for or against, even because they don't know what they don't know. Yeah, and which again does kind of apply nowadays. Because I'm thinking of it from the perspective of me, and if one of my kids suddenly blew up and his acne pops up back again, that disappeared 3 years ago, and suddenly his trap started at his ears, I'm going to be thinking, okay, what's going on? I was going to say if he was moody and irritable, but my kids are always that anyway, so I wouldn't be able to tell. But equally there are, you've got people walking around thinking whatever, the Rock is as natural as they come. So I guess there's also people for whom those aren't just signs that they would detect. So I might be kind of just thinking of it from my perspective.
Yeah.
So you got away with it until you were old enough that you could do what you like, basically.
Yeah. So I was old enough to say that I don't care what you think, which is bad.
Yeah.
But that was
Well, 21. That's what. Yeah. That's what. Yeah. What can you do?
Yeah.
As a dad, what can you do when your 21-year-old says I'm going to do something?
There's not much. So so then I was moving through that in terms of competing. Successful in the under 21 level, and the plan was to always try and push it as far as I could go, and maybe go pro as a bodybuilder. I would have never been able to do that. My genetic, I could have taken everything under the sun for the rest of my life, and I'd be nowhere near. But at that age, that was my dream. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I thought I was capable of, and I definitely was. Continued to train bodybuilding, and then around about, so this would have been 2016. End of 2015, start 2016, Again, completely open and honest. I was selling drugs. So we'll move into that, and that I eventually went to prison for in 2017. And during that time of my life, I was still training at the gym regularly. I was still PTing, and then I was obviously also dealing in Class A drugs that ultimately landed me in prison.
That is interesting because I'm on testosterone replacement therapy. So my testosterone comes from the little chemist inside my local Asda. So my experience of obtaining my prescribed medication is very different to how bodybuilders obtain theirs. So are the two linked? Is because you're using and you're handling the steroids, which are, I mean, I appreciate they're not, and obviously the legislation around steroids isn't quite the same as it is around Class A drugs and so on. But it's not the same as having a packet of aspirins in your pocket. That there's an element of I mean, whatever, naughtiness to it, if you like. You're doing something that you shouldn't, at least in some, whether it's, because I forget even the legislation on steroids outside the prescription. Am I right that it's not illegal to have, but it's illegal to sell? Is that pretty much the gist of it?
Yeah, correct. So it's legal to have in terms of personal use, which could be as much as you want, really. But yeah, you're not allowed to sell it, and you're not allowed to purchase it in this country. So I couldn't go to someone and buy it. That would also be illegal.
Right.
The way in which it's actually done is, say I go to Turkey, I buy in Turkey, it's legal to buy in Turkey. I bring the personal use back to the UK, and that's okay.
Yeah, indeed. I just find, because people often ask me about when I go on holiday, they're like, "Oh, how do you travel with your medication?" I stick my medication in my wash bag and I travel with. No one's and again, my medication is perfectly, it's prescribed drugs.
Yes.
It's no different to being a diabetic or something. But I was going to say, customs aren't obviously the issue. Nobody in the airport is particularly bothered because that's not really what they're more worried about. People bring in things that are going to blow planes up, and not some guy with
a quick story about this. I mentioned before. I'll keep it short. I went to Egypt, and you can buy it from the pharmacy in there. So you'd walk down the strip, and there was me, my best, and pumped up and all that carry on. They're shouting Rambo. I'm obviously loving it. I'm like 19 at the time. Rambo coming in over there, coming in. They take you into the back of the pharmacy. They open the fridges. It's stacked with growth hormones. They've got shelves just full of everything you could think of at fractions of the prices of what you're paying in the UK.
Yeah.
I emptied this pharmacy. I didn't bring any clothes back. I had this suitcase full, absolutely ram-packed. There's no way it's possibly personal use. Like, it's so rammed. And then they put it through the conveyor belt at Egypt. And anyway, I get stopped. And I think I paid the equivalent to 60 English pounds. And it was Lego, completely Lego. It's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was how it worked. Yeah.
Egypt's funny. We go to Egypt every year for the snorkeling, not the pharmaceuticals, but they are funny because they are, especially after the Russian plane got bombed flying out of Sharm a few years ago. They are on it in terms of searching your stuff. I mean, it's almost frustrating. You get your passport checked about 9 times between arriving at the airport and getting on the plane. It's hang on a minute, I've just done this.
Yeah.
So they are on it, but they are looking for people trying to blow their planes up. Basically, that's what they're after. And so it's amusing. Yeah, they come across you doing whatever you're doing. That's not exploding. So
yeah, it's good.
Yeah, pay for our
and away you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's interesting. So my point about the two being linked was that it is because you are moving in a world where you are having to obtain things that aren't 100% legit. Does that make it? Is that kind of what is it? I suppose, is getting hold of steroids a gateway to getting into worse things that you're selling, or would the two have happened anyway? I suppose is my question.
No, it's a really interesting question. I think it's something that people probably overlook, because people would say no, because obviously the big difference between a Class C drug that you're allowed to take versus obviously a Class A drug that you're going to spend a lot of time in prison for if you even call it, potentially. So, but I think the answer is yes, because it's just a little step down that road of grey area, what's legal, what isn't, and all of a sudden you're buying steroids to take them for yourself, and then you make one source, then you're passing it to him, then you realise you make a little bit of money on that, and next minute you're selling some steroids.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah, literally. I mean, it's Class C drugs in general. it almost, but by making them as illegal as they are, you do cause people, especially young people, to have to do things that they know are wrong,
Yeah.
inverted commas. And once you do something wrong, it doesn't really matter if you do something else wrong, and before you know it, you're doing something really wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas I mean, as the other end of the example, I'm going to ASDA to get my prescribed medication. So for me to go from that experience to now I'll start supplying Class A drugs, there's a bigger jump between ASDA and that. But yeah, when it's weird when they make things illegal, and some things obviously need to be, but when they make things illegal that they might not need to make illegal in that way, it almost just provides a kind of a bridge for youngsters especially.
I think it does, definitely, and it's just the other things that come with, like the steroids, and then so Trenbolone, for example, it stops people sleeping. So all of a sudden, people that are taking Trenbolone, they then want some diazepam to get to sleep, and it's, oh, can you get this? And I think I saw something, you get this, and then they say, oh, I've got a bit of this, and then it does snowball. Now, obviously, it's down to the person, me being that person at that time, complete immaturity, whatever you want to call it, stupidity, for going down that route. But I think, yeah, it does provide that gateway, 100%.
It's interesting you mention that, because I suppose the other thing as well is, because I was thinking of doing something illegal. Actually, the thing that you mentioned is when you're taking medication, that you're basically you're basing your doses and so on what your mates tell you and so on, because no doctor's prescribing your diazepam.
No.
Then that's the same thing. Yeah, when in terms of taking things, it's all just steps, isn't it? Again, for me, the amount of drugs I take is exactly what my doctor tells me to take.
Yeah.
And so to do anything that a doctor's not told me to take would be a huge leap.
Yeah.
But if I was making up my own doses, and even on TRT, I know there's plenty of guys that are told one thing by their doctor and then just do something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a slippery slope for all those things. Okay, so you find yourself in prison then, basically. That's
Yes.
That's going downhill rapidly.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was 2017, start of 2017. I think it was 3 days before my 25th birthday. So yeah, I find myself sat in prison without a clue on the extremity of what was actually happening. So I got arrested on conspiracy to supply, which, when it's conspiracy, it means nobody's caught me with any drugs, or nobody's got a picture of me selling some drugs or anything like that.
Sure.
It's a conspiracy of a lot of there was 32 people all arrested at the same time, all put in prison for this large conspiracy. With that, you're not sure what you're kind of getting. So it could be anywhere from 2 years to 20 years. It's depending on what gets attributed to you, etc., and what you've actually done, whether you go guilty or not, when you go to a trial. So you're stuck in this bit of limbo of, in my case, I know I'm supposed to be here. I was fully accepting of that. Like, I knew the whole time, one day I'll go to jail. And I didn't actually care at that moment in time, which is really bad and sad looking back at it. But that was the situation I was in. I just didn't care. I was young, reckless, wasn't bothered in the slightest. Thought, I'll go to jail, whatever, I'm not bothered. And in that moment, it's obviously a scary time, and you're thinking, how long am I going to get, and things like that. But yeah, you can adapt to any situation you are in. So it was 3.5 years I ended up spending in prison before release.
Yeah, you say you adapt. Again, if you're a youngster, because if someone says to me, go to prison, I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, who's going to feed my dogs?
Yeah.
And then I got my wife and my kids and the mortgage. But yeah, I mean, if you're young, I can see how you just kind of kids just roll with it, don't they? In a way, whatever's thrown at them, unfortunately, in this instance.
Yeah, very much so. From when I got arrested, I'd moved home. I'd moved out when I was a bit younger, and I'd moved home to help my mum look after my dad. He was incredibly ill, started suffering early signs of dementia. And I'd moved home to help with that. And just before I got arrested, he'd gone into a care home. And then I used to visit him every single day without fail. And then after I'd been arrested, 4 weeks after, he'd had a heart attack and was told he wasn't going to make it through the night. And he was in a coma. And they took me out of the prison, double cuffed to guards and cuffed to my ankles and everything to see him in the coma, because they said he's not going to wake up in the morning. Because I was still on remand, I was allowed to go. So that means I wasn't sentenced. So I had been guilty. So it was, this guy can go and see his dad before he dies.
Yeah. Theoretically, you might even be innocent at that point.
Correct.
As far as I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've gone to the hospital. My dad's been in the coma at this point for, I think, just under 20 hours. Not said a word and not moved. I'm sat there talking to him, obviously, hoping that something I say is going to wake him up. And he's turned around and he's gone, "Son, shut up." And that's the only thing he said. And he's still in this coma. And honestly, the nurses, everyone's absolutely horrified. And that's all. He's still not going to wake up in the morning. I've gone back to prison that night, ring my mum in the morning. Oh, he's woke up. He's back in the home. He's good. He's fine. I can't believe it. And then 4 weeks after that, he had another heart attack and died. And that was the hardest thing for me in the world to this day. That it was difficult for me as a person being in there, but it was more for I'm not there for my mum and my sister now to support them through what's an incredibly difficult time for them. And that still keeps me awake at night now, like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah. I can imagine not being there for them rather than anything else.
For my own stupidity, all my own doing. So
yeah. And so so 3 years. 3 years in prison?
Yeah, 3.5 years, yeah.
3.5 years. I mean, I don't want to turn this into a prison podcast, but I mean, stupid question. What's that like?
It depends which prison you're in, as bad as that is. But yeah, I was in Liverpool for 2 years because that's where the conspiracy was based. So I was in Liverpool for 2 years, on remand for like 19 months. I ended up being you get jobs in like trusted positions, and once they realise you're not, I don't know, running around robbing people's pads or selling drugs in there and stuff. So I ended up with a job in the gym, which was obviously fantastic for me. It was perfect. So I could help the lads in the gym. I was helping the lads doing the PTs level 2 and 3. So I was helping out with them in terms of like a mentoring aspect, just cleaning the gym, helping the lads with sessions, training plenty myself, and kind of just got lost in training twice a day and the gym environment, studying as much as possible, and just trying to make the best out of a bad situation, trying to hopefully plan for the future.
So it's clearly it's suboptimal, but it's doable. You can get through a few years, and I've probably watched too many ex-convicts on Joe Rogan that did their time in Pelican Bay.
I think though, anyone that's been to prison, they want to make it sound as if it's much worse than it is. Like, don't get me wrong, it's bad. And if you want trouble, it's there for you and all that, carry on. But if you want to stay away from it and you just want to carry on, like, that's fine. Like, you don't walk out your bed every day thinking like, oh my God, someone's going to stab me. Like, it's not like that. And I've been in bad jails. Yeah.
Okay, so you do 3 years, you come out. Actually, I say you come out. My complete lack of understanding about the prison system tells me the only thing it tells me is that people come out and then they just go back again. That's my kind of naive assumption. You go in there, especially if you go in there when you're young, no matter how much you try and keep your head down, you're gonna come out, you're gonna know how to pick a lock, you're just gonna learn all these new things, and you've now just got you're now just a career criminal. Obviously you haven't done that. Did you see that around you? Did you see people just? You're kind of thinking, okay, you're out next week, but you're going to be back at some point, or is it not quite as grim in that sense as we're led to believe?
It's exactly like that, and not only did I think it, I would see it on a weekly basis. So when I would see people leave and come back multiple times while because I was in Liverpool for 2 years, obviously quite a long period of time. Yeah, I'd see people get out, and then a month later I'd see them in again. I'd see them in the gym, and I'd say, I thought you got out. Oh yeah, I did, and now I'm back. And that was 24. It was just constant, absolutely constant. And even when you're having conversations with people, when they're gonna get out, there's no plan to get a job. It's straight back to whatever they do. I don't know, they rob houses, sell drugs, whatever it is they do. Yeah, it's just straight back to that. And like you say, career criminal, and that is something that I do now. I do speak to prisoners and people that have just got out of prison. And I'm hopefully soon actually launching education courses in prison, and it's just to help people understand that you can change. You can actually do something different than crime. But
yeah, it's a weird one because I mean, as you say, you've got you're when you're there, you're talking to people that are in for whatever burglary, let's say.
Yeah.
And burglary is quite a good example because burglary is quite an emotive one.
Yeah.
For example, when I hear you talking about selling Class A drugs, and this is me being a bit naive because clearly in order to buy your Class A drugs, people are probably doing burglaries to get the money, and so it's all intertwined. But I don't have the kind of the emotive gut reaction that I hear if someone says I'm a burglar, because I think, well, that could be my house.
Yeah.
So burglary is a good example. You say, you're talking to someone and he's going to go out and just be a burglar again. That's what he's going to go and do. And so to my mind, I'm thinking, well, that man should be in for life. Just for, not because life is the appropriate sentence for burglary, but because life is the appropriate way of stopping someone from being a burglar. If all they're going to do is, it's a pity we can't. We need Elon to come up with some sort of brain scan that can just, as the guy's walking out and he's being released, if it kind of pings, no, this guy's planning to burgle someone tomorrow. We don't even get in the car, mate. Just turn back around and go back in again. It's Now, actually, what you'll probably think is, no, we should probably just reform them better, rather than have everyone in as serving life.
I do think that it's like some people. Obviously, the conversations that I've had in there with people, it's like some of these people have got absolutely nothing. Now, I'm not saying that makes it right to go and commit crime. I'm not saying that whatsoever. But these people have got nothing to live for in their life. They don't have kids. They don't have family. They don't have a job. They've never had a job. They've had no one care for them forever. And like I say, that doesn't make it right. But in their minds, they've got absolutely nothing to lose other than gain. Like maybe they're going to be living on the streets if they don't go and do something. So, like I say, it certainly doesn't make it right by any stretch, but that's the situation that a lot of these people are in. Sometimes through fault of their own, sometimes potentially not. But,
it's an interesting one you say that, because I have I listen to a guy called Sam Harris does his own podcast, and he talks a lot about free will and whether you even have it and so on. And the thing that I find listening to that sort of conversation is very interesting in terms of issues like this is that I completely understand when you say these people have got nothing else, that their life is so far removed from my life that it's pointless for me to be thinking, as many people do. They think, well, I wouldn't be a burglar. If I had nothing, I wouldn't be a burglar. Well, you would if you were them.
Yeah.
Because if you were them, you'd have exactly the same thought processes, everything that's happened in their life up until that point would have happened to you.
Yeah.
And if it led them to go and do that, it would lead you to go and do that because you would be them effectively. And it's a little bit like moaning that a bear attacks someone. It's just a bear. That's just what it does.
That's what they do. Yeah.
So when I hear about people that are burglars and they're going to go and be a burglar again, my reaction isn't like, oh, they're a nasty person, and it's not kind of directed at them as an individual. It's just for the sake of society.
Oh, 100%.
Lock them up, and also, don't have bears wandering around the street. I mean, and I don't mind bears either, but there are some things we just can't have.
Yeah.
Bears and burglars.
Well, it's funny when you speak about it like that, because when if you have a conversation with any prison staff, they'll sometimes sometimes all the time categorize people by what they're in for. So anyone that was working in the gym, say I applied for a job at the gym, what are you in for? I would sign Class A drugs. Or sound, you're an alright guy, you can work in there. So if people are in for selling drugs are seen as, like, I don't know, better than people that are in for burglary, for example, and that is how it is in there. If you're a burglar, you're probably not getting a trusted job in prison. And
that's it. That is interesting.
Genuinely, that is how it is. And obviously, depending on people in for different types of different scales of various crimes, and that'll dictate people's like security clearance and things like that. So it does. It
is weird because you're right. I mean, if you're a burglar, everyone owns a house. Everyone has a house. Nearly everyone has a house.
Yeah.
And even if you don't, you know what that experience is like. So even the guy living under a bridge probably doesn't like burglars because he knows someone with a house. So burglary is a weird one. Actually, it's something that I. This is a bit of a weird one, but I've always had this slightly weird thought process that one of the things that I quite like about this sounds a bit daft, not being a criminal or not having a lifestyle that is looked down upon by large numbers of other people.
Yeah,
is when I look at the people that I admire, and I don't really kind of have heroes, but there's certainly, if someone said to me, I don't know, whatever, Stallone wants to have dinner with you, he's seen your YouTube channel, he loves it, I'm having dinner with Stallone, and I'm having a nice evening's meal, and I'm going to talk to him about what he does and find it fascinating, and I hope he asks about what I do, and I hope he finds it fascinating, and so we, as two human beings, we have that happens. And it always occurred to me, if your job is a burglar, it's quite weird because burglars have heroes. Burglars have people they if they were told you're going to get to meet some film star or whatever it might be, or whoever kind of floats their boat, But that film star would, if discovered what that burglar did, would regard them as a bit of a scumbag.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I've always wondered what it. I mean, you're not a burglar, so you can't answer this. But it always made me wonder. Yeah, what do people whose basically their 9 to 5 is just ruining other people's lives?
Yeah.
How do they kind of go through life knowing that anybody they were to meet and discuss that with outside of their little social circle of other burglars is going to think, what an absolute scumbag. And I suppose all it does is maybe it comes back to what we're saying, it keeps you in that little group of people because it's quite hard to break out of that. Because the minute you try and do that, people are going to say, "Oh, you're a burglar. We don't want to socialise with you."
Yeah,
because we don't do that.
It's very rare that, like, my mum, for example, she works in a chemist. She's never gonna have a conversation with someone who's like, "Oh yeah, I burgle houses." Do you know what I mean? So like people living in different pockets of society, should we say?
Yes, it is. It's an interesting one. I mean, one of the premises, the premise actually for this podcast was if I sit down at a Christmas do. And there's someone on my right is an accountant or whatever, and someone on my left is interesting.
Yeah,
and accountants now losing their minds. Then I'm going to talk to the interesting person. If I sit down at Christmas do and I'm just a lifetime burglar, I'm now thinking, what the hell Christmas do have I come to?
Yeah, moves.
And it's just I've always found it interesting that people can have lifestyles that are. So abhorrent, basically, to other people that they can't fit in society anywhere other than either pretending and lying about what they do, or just hanging out with other people that do the same.
Yeah, and all of a sudden
so I can see how you can get stuck in it. Yeah. Okay. So you come out of prison, and the cliche, which probably isn't a cliche, or even if it is, it's probably right. Is that it's then impossible to get any work because you're now an ex-con and nobody wants to employ you, and so you're now supposed to be stuck. So how do you overcome that?
Yeah, so from probably I'd say maybe the first 6 months of prison for me was quite difficult. My dad passed and things like that. Beyond that, it was accepted. So this is my situation now, and regardless of how it's going to be for, I need to put in place a life that I can live outside of this that gives me everything that I want. In terms of materialistic things and fulfillment and ability to grow a family. But I need to do that, obviously, not through crime. And the whole time I was in prison, like I say, aside from them first 6 months, was geared towards that. And anyone, if you asked anyone that was in any prison with me, Steve was constantly reading and studying, and I was always interested in. If I was sat speaking to people and they started talking about selling drugs again, I'd just get up and leave. I'm not interested in conversations. That's all behind me. And like I say, every day was just geared towards creating a life for myself. So when I first got out, I went to Leeds Beckett University to study my master's degree in sport exercise nutrition. Went there and studied that, opened my online coaching business. And I just worked all day, every day, 12, 14-hour shifts all day, every day for 12 months. And I thought, I need to get this business giving me what I need to build a life that I want. And I was so heart set and determined to do that there was no way it was going to fail because I was just so committed to it. And yeah, that's how I moved forward.
And that was working for yourself with your online business?
Yes. Yeah.
I guess not. I appreciate the struggles of running your own business, but I guess in a way, an easier route for you than going to a boss to be and saying, "This is my history. Can I have a job?"
Yeah, 100%. There was that aspect of it, and then also the fact of where I was in BAE Systems at that time. Strangely enough, BAE Systems would actually have me back, even regardless of the criminal conviction, but I didn't want to work.
Well, they spent 4 years training you. They probably
they'd invested something $100. Come back, it's fine. Don't
yeah.
But yeah, it was for me. It was I need to be able to work my own hours. If I have a family, I want to know when that I can. If I want to take the kids to the park on a Tuesday afternoon, I can take them there. I didn't want to be working for someone else. They want set working hours in that aspect. And that was what it was. It was all just about creating the life that I really want to live. I knew I'd have to work very hard as soon as I got out to create that. And thankfully, I'm in a position now where I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing. I opened a gym in that time, which was like a lifelong goal. So I have the gym, I have the online coaching company, and then I started teaching other personal trainers and fitness professionals how to grow an online business. So that is mainly my focus now. I still have the gym. I still coach some people in terms of physique, just not as much. And then I'm also just writing education courses that I'll hopefully be taking into prisons to be able to deliver there as well. So
Actually, it's interesting with the gym, because obviously loads of guys that are in the fitness world, it's a dream to run a gym. So it's like being a chef and wanting your own restaurant. But having worked many years ago in gyms, mostly local authority ones, and that's a different kind of, they're trying to make money a different way.
Yeah.
But I always wondered, especially when I'm in some gyms and it's really quiet, and I know what the business rates and stuff are like for those places, but is the gym, is that a good business, or is that just a thing that you just love to have? Because I know that the online stuff is where a lot of people make a lot of their income as a percentage.
Yeah.
So almost like why are you messing about with a building?
Yeah. So for now, where the gym's at now, it's a good investment in terms of the money that I put in terms of the time, energy, and effort that I put into it. Terrible business idea. I wouldn't recommend anyone do it if it was going to be their sole income. From the age of about 16, I was heart set that one day I would own a gym, like obsessed. And that carried on throughout my whole life till the day I opened it. And even now, I absolutely love it. I wanted to just make a gym that was super good equipment, that everyone loved being in there. And like, I'll still walk in there now. I have little to do with the run of it. We have great staff, great management. But I walk in there and I see everyone happy training, and the smiles on people's faces, and I absolutely love it. I really do. And as a business concept, like I say, I wouldn't do that as like a sole business. But I definitely don't regret it. It's awesome. I do love it.
Yeah, I think a bit like a restaurant. It needs to be something that you just want to love to do. In fact, I had the same visions, and what I've managed to kind of mold it into is when I live in a pretty built up area. At some point soon, we're going to be moving into the wilderness, or as wilderness as you can get in the UK, or maybe somewhere in Wales, which is obviously still part of the UK. I've now got people in Wales saying, "Hang on, that's us too."
That's moral subscribers. You've got the accountants.
I know. I know. If there's a Welsh accountant out there who also likes burglary, he's gonna hate me.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at places online to buy houses, just houses to live in. And like every now and again, I'll see one that's got like a massive, great barn out the back. And I'm thinking, awesome, I can turn it into a gym.
Yeah.
But I don't need to run a gym.
Yeah.
I can have it for like YouTube challenges, and I can have people. I've seen, I think it's Rich Fronin, CrossFit.
Yeah.
Rich Fronin. I've seen some of his YouTube videos, and his place seems to have a big warehouse basically in the backyard, a bit like The Rock does. The Rock has this kind of Iron Palace thing in his garden, basically. And that to me seems to be the perfect gym, because you don't need members, you don't need staff, you just need this. I'd still have some staff go and clean it for me probably, but that's my gym vision, is basically a gym without the customers.
So which actually is a lot less stressful anyway.
Well, yeah, it's any business's dream, isn't it, to have the money and no one actually hassling you. So in terms of your training now, this is something I'm fascinated by, because my training, as I say, I never did bodybuilding. Or never did bodybuilding with the intention of bodybuilding. So I've done whatever, bro splits and stuff. I've trained like a bodybuilder, but never really focused on it. So it never grabbed me. And then I got fat, and then I got thin again through running. And then I thought, I'm 6'6", I can't be too thin. I look stupid. So I get a bit bigger. So I did a little bit of weights, and I got into obstacle course racing, and I kind of settled around high rocks, which actually I don't do much of anymore now. I mean, I've got a few things lined up this year with high rocks, but it's more for fun. I don't take it very seriously. But that style of training where I go to the gym and one day, people ask me, it's interesting talking to a proper instructor. People ask me all the time to write them programs and stuff. So I know how lucrative it would be. If I wanted to be a complete scoundrel and pretend I knew something, I could just write pure programs.
I'm sure you know enough.
Do you know, people say that. I have to email them out and go, no, I really don't. So the way I train is I wake up in the morning and I think, first of all, shall I train today? Because people assume I'm just living in the gym, and no. I tell people all the time, I'm a YouTuber and I work out. I'm not a fitness YouTuber.
Yeah.
So I decided, first of all, am I going to bother training today? And then what shall I do? And also I'm 50. I have no real kind of specific goals and objectives. The way I train is beautiful. I get up and I think, yesterday, for example, I thought I want to do chest, so I'm going to go and do chest.
Yeah.
And I went and I did a kind of classic, and I might as well have ripped a page out of, I'm going to date my bodybuilding inspirations. I might have ripped out Sean Ray's training program from my era, and gone and whatever Frank Zane workout or something. And I just do a chest workout, and it's completely inappropriate in the sense that I'm not. That will be the only chest workout I'll probably do for the next 5 weeks because I don't train like that. So I do a chest workout today. I mentioned before we came on air, I mentioned I was at a velodrome doing some cycling.
Yeah.
So my quads sitting here now are smoked. Tomorrow, I fancy doing back. I might go and do some back. But what that, people are like, oh, what do you do for back? I've got no idea. I walk in the gym, I look around, and I think, if it's really quiet, I'll start with chin-ups because no one can see me. It's embarrassing because I can do about 3, so I might start with that.
So hard, so difficult.
I mean, I have no plan, and so I just kind of bounce around all over the place. And what it leaves me able to do is go do a park run on Saturday and run faster than most 50-year-olds. Certainly faster than most 50-year-olds my size. It allows me to jump on a rowing machine and be fast, turn up at a velodrome like I did today, and ride a bicycle quickly-ish. Basically, I'm a jack of all trades and absolutely a master of none, and I love that.
Same.
So that's how I train, and every now and again it appeals to me a little bit. And for example, I'm talking at the moment with Jamie. I mentioned this to you actually before, Jamie, who plays Giant in. I say plays Giant, like he's it sounds like he's in pantomime. He's Giant on Gladiators in the UK. Yeah. And we are hopefully doing some high rock stuff together. And he's a big guy, 6'5". So he's up kind of up nearly as tall as me.
I saw him in Manchester actually. I raced Manchester. I saw him.
Okay, yeah, indeed. In fact, he said he was going because he went up there to watch Zach. Who's quite funny, who had CrossFit numbers for his high rocks, which is basically slow run, monstered the exercise, slow run, monstered the exercise. That's how you can spot a CrossFitter at a high rocks event. And I look at his physique, and I mean he was pro bodybuilder, so he's obviously a very different physique to me, and part of me thinks, oh, that appeals a little bit, or I'll watch Jack Reacher and I think, I wouldn't mind. I see the appeal.
Yeah.
Then I see a scene where Jack Reacher has to pretend to run after somebody, and I think, okay, I don't see the appeal anymore, because if Jack Reacher came to my park run, the man would have he'd do a lap and need the electric shocks on him.
B-fib.
Exactly. Yes, and then medevaced out of there. So I don't really get it. So with your training, what are you seeing nowadays? And this might be specific to your gym anyway, but are people coming in and because I don't understand. It's a very long-winded way of saying I don't understand why everyone has gone bodybuilding bonkers.
Yeah.
And they never used to be. And are you seeing a change because of CrossFit, High Rocks, Deca, Spartan Deca? Is that having any kind of impact at the moment?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I was having this conversation actually in the gym a few days ago. So I think up until very recently, bodybuilding had sort of come in and not took over, but bodybuilding pretty huge. I think as CrossFit's grown sort of popularity, it's took away from it a little bit, but still not too much. I think with High Rocks coming in now, and then Deca as well, and then people wanting to be hybrid, everyone wants to be a hybrid athlete now. So it is one of them that I am seeing more of a shift towards people still wanting to look great, but obviously are interested in more cardio. And I think it's a really good thing, definitely, because like I said, when I was bodybuilding, like cardio for me was going for a 20-minute walk, and if I'd put the incline on 2% a little bit, I'm like, I'm really going for it at that point. Yeah, I'm not going to walk up the stairs, like bad place to be, but I didn't care because I was hench or thought I was or whatever. But now I think people moving into the sort of hybrid role a little bit more, but I think that change is only just really happening. I don't know what it is. I think maybe it's like the whole alpha thing. Who's got the biggest biceps? Who looks the best with the top off? It's.
I mean, like many things, it comes back to social media, doesn't it?
Well,
because you don't. I can't put a photograph of my amazing park run up. It's just a photograph of me running.
Yeah.
But if I had amazing arms, I can do that, and it's
Yeah.
and it's instant. There it is, and they don't need him. They don't need to be strong. It's pure. I forget who the bodybuilder was, but it would have been back in my era. I remember reading a magazine, and the guy was saying, and it was the first time it even registered with me that this was not about strength, because the guy said, if I could lift tins of beans and get massive, I would do. This is not a strength sport. This is purely aesthetic.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I'd been 14, 15 and thought, I get it now.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting that almost stopped it from being super popular, because people did realise that. Because if you were a bodybuilder and you turned up at a triathlon or something, you're going to get absolutely smoked.
Oh, screwed. Yeah.
But suddenly social media says, hang on a minute, here's a medium for you. Because the medium for bodybuilding used to be what you experienced: stand on stage in front of predominantly other men, and get clapped or given your wooden spoon.
Bizarre.
Yeah, indeed, it is. When you break it down to that, it is a really weird thing to do. It's a bit of an odd thing. Hence, back in the early 80s, you'd have Arnold go on talk shows, whatever, Johnny Carson or whatever, or Leno and stuff, and kind of take his shirt off, and everyone just be like, what a weird, freaky looking guy. Yeah, can you imagine now if Alan Richardson went on a talk show, Jack Reacher, and they said, "I'll take your shirt off because you look freaky"? I mean, it's almost just accepted that's just now.
I think the funny thing is though as well, like when you look at the bodybuilder and he's almost flexing that, most people are looking thinking weirdo or dickhead or whatever, but in that bodybuilder's mind, he's the greatest thing on the planet. Like, do you know what I mean?
It's funny. Jamie said exactly. I was talking to him because he was massive. I mean, he's a big guy anyway. Yeah. And so he was just he was literally a giant. And it was funny because he said to me, he's obviously dropped some weight, and he was saying that when he used to be that big, people would say to him, "Oh, it's disgusting, you look ridiculous." And he'd be like, "No, you're just jealous," and all this. And now he's able to look back and go, "No, I did look absolutely bonkers." I mean, just because something happens to fit exactly what the judges are looking for in a bodybuilding context, that doesn't obviously, I mean, there's no reason why it would make that then appropriate for just social acceptance.
Yeah.
I mean, because the two aren't linked.
Not the norm. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a bit like a gymnast being able to do, whatever, triple backflip and going, that's amazing. Well, it is. But you can't, if you do it in the high street, people are going to think you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But bodybuilders think they can take their on-stage sport
100%.
and walk down the high street and everyone is like, wow, it's still amazing. And it's weird because no other kind of art would do it. If you were if you're a dancer and you go down your high street shopping and you're doing your dance as you're doing it, people think that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But you got bodybuilders walking on with their invisible lat spreads, and it's hang on a minute, guys, that's for the stage. But then social media's come along and said, no, it's not. You can wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, you can stick a photograph online, and you get that acceptance that you would never have got. But in fact, you would never have got because you'd never have made it as a pro bodybuilder. You said yourself, in fact, it's interesting you said that no matter what you took, you wouldn't have been a pro bodybuilder.
Nowhere near.
But you'd have looked, I'm sure, amazing on Instagram. And that's all you need. Now, it's interesting to hear that I mean, I'm glad things are changing a bit. But if only for the youngsters. If I see a guy that's 50, I mean, Liver King is a kind of modern day example. I mean, Liver King clearly lying and selling stuff, scumbag. But in terms of him doing what he wants, do what you like. The same with The Rock. In fact, I want The Rock to take more gear. I want The Rock, because if I go and watch a Rock movie, I want to watch just a freaky, funny, 100%. Entertaining. I want him to be jacked off the screen. So that's all cool. I don't mind that. And I question it a little bit when they start kind of, The Rock doesn't do this, but there are some guys that, hey, I'm doing a movie, and by the way, here's my program that you can buy to also look like me. That gets a bit iffy. But in general, actors, I don't really care. But when I see kids online, 15, 16, 17, one kid after another who is with 19-inch arms and acne that looks like they should be in hospital for it, and just thinking, what are you? And then the most disappointing thing is then reading the comments, and it's just a bunch of other kids saying, leave him alone. He's worked incredibly hard. It's amazing, and just such admiration for these people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, do you see it? Do you see youngsters coming in and just wanting that? And
I have people ask me all the time. So obviously, by nature of owning the gym, specifically when I used to work there on the desk often, and I'd see a lot of members. Everyone knows me probably in the town from a bodybuilding background, still a reasonable muscle mass, and they'll ask me questions. What did you take when you competed, or do you still take this, or X, Y, and Z? And I don't know everything about steroids by any stretch. I've done a lot of research, but the amounts and dosages and the types of things that people are taking without any clue. So some people are taking stuff they don't even know what it is. And I'm like, oh, well, what are you using? Oh, I don't know. It says this on the bottle. And it's like, yeah, but what compounds are in it? Oh, I don't know. I just take like 4 mil. And it's like, yeah, but what's in that for? Oh, I don't know. And it's like, wow, just.
I mean, it is even in the TRT world.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on a few Facebook groups and stuff for people that have a legitimate need and medical need, and they use TRT, and they'll be like, oh, I'm taking this much. They'll post a photograph of their pin, their needle, their syringe, and they'll say, is that the right amount?
Honestly.
Amount of what? Is that orange juice in there? I've got no idea what you're even.
Crazy.
Yeah, and you're going to shove that into your body. Just
people go me up. They're like, I'm taking 4 mil, and I'm like, but how many milligrams is in 1 mil? Don't know. I just take 4. It's like, yeah, but it matters about the milligram. Like, please just. And people just can't get it. I don't know if they're just they just can't be bothered or what. Maybe a combination of both. But it's just
part of the problem is nowadays they'll watch two YouTube videos by Derek on More Plates More Days.
Yeah,
and suddenly they think they're qualified to literally start injecting things into themselves.
Yeah.
And they're 17 years old or 16 or 15 years old. And it's just...
That's it. One of the major issues, I think, which is one of the biggest issues, is they take too much of something that then requires something else to counteract that something. That then it's a knock-on effect of that. So you end up, instead of just taking less and just being kind of sensible if you are going to go down that route, it's either I'll take loads, but then I'll take loads of other things to help lower, like my estrogen, for example, but then that impacts cholesterol levels. Then I need to take that. It's all of a sudden you're stacking like 10 different things on. When in reality, if you're going to go down the route, just become educated, use a bit less, and yeah, it's a man.
Well, that happens even in the TRT world, where guys will take doses that are high, and then they need to take an aromatase inhibitor because their estrogen's going through the roof, and then they're having to go and do blood donations, because their blood count's going through the roof, and they can't sleep at night, and they're saying, oh, what should I do? Well, don't take 300 milligrams a week.
Lower the dose. It's all you need to do.
Yeah. People say to me all the time, they say, how's your blood work? My blood work looks like it's out of a textbook. It's because I take 112 milligrams a week. I did a podcast on this recently. 112 milligrams a week. My test levels sit in a trough at about 500 and probably peak at about 600. And I feel fine. I have at the minute I go too high, I get oily skin, and that's the first side effect. That's my canary in the mine. I never, in fact, my blood levels are perfect because of all the cardio I do. That's another thing as well. You get guys saying, "Oh, my blood pressure's through the roof and stuff." Well, what's your cardio? And they go, "Well, I do a minute walk on the Stairmaster before I go and do my pull-ups." Well, that's not cardio.
It's crazy. But instead of doing that for lots of 30 minutes a hit, just for tell that they'll just take something. It's like, no, let's not take something. Let's do some work.
It is. Yeah. Well, it's nice. There are people running gyms that that understand. What should be going on. It does disappoint me. I mean, at the moment, Sam Sulik is the kid that's on YouTube, and it's a real pity because again, I'm all for anyone doing what they like. And he appears to be a nice, polite kid that's just kind of cracking on, and he's not doing what I'd want my kid to be doing, but whatever, he's getting on with it, but he'll has millions and millions of people that just adore him and what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, a bit like Chris Bumstead with his goodness knows how many million followers on Instagram. It's just the idea that a bodybuilder he's not even Mr. Olympia proper, inverted commas, would have such a massive following back in the day. I mean, Arnold had to become the biggest movie star on the planet to have that sort of following. Chris
Absolutely.
Bumstead's still standing on stage every year and has it now. I mean, nobody was like that. I mean, if I spoke to my friends in 1991 about Dorian Yates, all my friends would say, who?
Yeah.
They wouldn't have I go, this guy from Birmingham that's a body, but what are you talking about? I have no idea who that is. And if I showed them a picture, they'd say,
funny.
what on earth is that? And I have to admit, even when Dorian came along, I started thinking a little bit, what on earth is that? I mean, in a way, I was quite lucky because I saw Dorian Yates and it allowed me to think, okay, that definitely isn't something that I really want to, it's just not, that sport has gone in a way that I'm not particularly interested in.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that he now is such a sensible kind of advocate for just sensible training and looking after yourself and yet in a way was the guy that started everything that followed in terms of guys with you know bubble gut and all the nonsense that kind of came from it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think with what you mentioned there about Chris Bumstead, it's interesting because he's probably the number one person that younger lads in the gym will say to me, "Oh, have you seen that Chris Bumstead? Have you seen that?" And it's like
they all want to be C-bum.
Yeah, but it's like you could do whatever you could take everything with the sun for the next 100 years and you're not even going to be remotely close, like not even remotely, but instead of accepting that, no, I'll stick everything in me and I'll see what I can do. And it's like, it's just, I don't know if it's just, it's not accepting reality or maybe a warped version of reality, or they think that they can achieve these things when in reality you just can't. Like I've been that person.
What's also funny, if when you listen to Chris talk in podcasts and stuff, he'll say he can't wait in a way to be able to slim down, stop competing, so that he can just move around.
Yeah.
So that he can just run and stretch properly and be able to kind of get his arms above his head and stuff and just because of the weight, I got no idea what he weighs when he competes, but he's whatever. I got no idea what he looks like. He's 260 or something. I mean, just huge.
Yeah, he's massive.
And that is, as someone that weighs 220, it's just a lot. When you're, as soon as you go over 200 pounds, really,
it's hard work.
It's just a lot of weight to get up out of a chair. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it's physically, it's just not good to spend that long, I don't think.
No.
Certainly not 10, 20, 30 years of your life moving that sort of weight around. It's just,
the strain,
there aren't many 6'6", 80-year-olds. So my worry is that all my fellow 6'6" people seem to die off, and I'm sure it's got. But you often see the little old guy who has probably never been 5'8" in his life, and just
you take TRT, so you'll live till you're 100, you're fine.
What do you know? It's very funny because there are. It's really it frustrates me that there aren't more people having conversations about it. And the reason I understand why they can't because if they talk about it, My Protein's going to pull their sponsorship deal.
Yeah.
That's why they can't do it.
Of course.
My protein, I have to buy my own protein powder, so it doesn't matter to me. But it is a nuisance because you've got so many conflicting, stupid understandings. So, for example, you've got I take TRT, so therefore I must be able to do anything I want, live forever, get jacked. Meanwhile, you've got kids that think they can do it and become Bumstead.
Yeah.
Who simply can't, and then vice versa. You've also got people who think that anybody who achieves anything only was able to achieve it because they took it.
Yeah.
And you look at guys that are just natural fit, whatever, Phil Heath or whatever, and you think, well, no, Phil Heath is going to look like a massive man, whether he took so or not. And if everyone just discussed it was out there, people would just have an understanding. Parents would have an understanding.
Yeah.
But none of them do. It's
not at all. You mentioned there Phil Heath. I remember seeing in one of the bodybuilder magazines a picture of him. I think he was like 17 playing basketball, way bigger than most men that go to the gym their whole lives. Bigger. And it's like, that tells you everything you need to know. Just genetics are just completely next level.
Well, Ronnie Coleman, I think Ronnie Coleman exaggerates slightly as to when he started on stuff, but there's no doubt if you ever saw a 15-year-old Ronnie Coleman, he would have looked like a scary 15-year-old.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, it is. Yeah, people just don't quite understand that aspect of it. And again, it's frustrating, and I know why my kind of fellow fitness YouTube, Instagram people don't discuss it. And I know why if you're a movie star you don't discuss it because why would you? Well, there's nothing in it to discuss it. In fact, it interested me actually. I wonder what you think of this. So Alan Richson, who is Jack Reacher. If people haven't seen, Jack Reacher is a TV show, and Alan Richardson got very big. He was already jacked anyway. He got even more jacked, and he then recently came out and said, "Yeah, I do some TRT." And everyone said, "Yeah, obviously," and probably then some, but whatever. He said something, and it is interesting that someone said something. I did wonder why, because to my mind, there's always been three groups of people. So if you're The Rock, you got a group of people that know you take steroids and don't care. You got a group of people that don't know, don't care, just aren't interested, and you got a group of people that are dumb and think you don't.
Yeah.
And if you come out and say, "Oh, I do," the ones that knew, the ones that don't care. And the ones that thought you were natural now think you're a cheating scumbag.
Yeah.
So there's nothing in it. So if The Rock ever says to his publicist, "Oh, I'm thinking about being honest because I'm now 70 and I'm still," they're going to say no. You got three groups: Rock, if they call him Rock, Mr. Rock, I don't know. And all you're going to do is two won't care and one will get upset.
Yeah.
So it does interest me why Alan Richardson came out and said, "Yeah, I do." I don't know if my thinking is that the average audience for Reacher is kind of middle-aged men. It's sort of dad bod TV.
Yeah.
And they think it plays better with that audience, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe you've also got, like, from the standpoint as well, if he is potentially using a little bit more, and to just say, "Oh well, I'm just using TRT," potentially tries to play down a little bit from that side of things. But yeah, no, it definitely is interesting because, especially when you put it like that, the three groups is completely correct. I mean, I've sat there and watched films with, I don't know, from my mum, for example, and she wouldn't have a clue if The Rock was taking something, even after me being bodybuilding for a while. Like, no idea. And if he come out one day, and perhaps my mum's a bad example, she wouldn't actually care. But like you say, if The Rock comes out with, steroids my whole life, you got all them people that are horrified. Like, I can't believe I've paid to watch your movies. But yeah,
the naivety of it is astounding. The problem I have with guys that are potentially doing a bit more than TRT and thinking, well, if I admit to TRT, then it kind of gets me some kudos with some people for being honest, but I haven't really admitted everything. The danger of that is that I don't want, speaking selfishly, I don't want TRT to become viewed in the sort of the social consciousness as being 6'5" and 250 pounds, because that's not TRT.
Yeah.
In fact, I made the point in my recent video that Ryan Gosling in Ken and Barbie could easily be on TRT in the sense that he doesn't look like he is, and that's the average person on TRT.
Yeah.
In fact, the average person on TRT looks like a bag of shit.
Yeah, you would have no idea.
Absolutely. It's like cosmetic surgery. If it's obvious, it's obvious.
Yeah.
But for 99% of people, unless the surgeon's an idiot, you got no idea.
Yeah.
So I would like the idea of people, and these are just random names of fit and healthy people. Ryan Gosling, Tom Cruise, all those sort of guys. Tom Cruise is a good example. 61 years old, looks in great shape.
Yeah.
If clearly not short of some money. Would you not, almost, why wouldn't you be doing everything you possibly can?
Yeah.
So for someone like that to come out and say, "Yeah, this is what I happen to be doing," if indeed he was, that would be actually really beneficial.
Yeah,
when guys like, if The Rock were to come out and go, "Yeah," because obviously the answer nowadays is it's TRT, everybody, or sports TRT, I heard someone say recently.
I think that's the one that everyone's really on. Everyone that says they're on TRT and you say, "So how much do you take?" And they're like, "Yeah, like 300 milligrams a week." And you're like, "That's not TRT."
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a little bit more. No, it's not a little
bit. And one thing that I hear a lot is, no, because you treat the symptoms. Ignore the numbers. Just treat the symptoms.
Yeah, it is.
I think, hang on a minute. What medicine is ever prescribed with such disregard to the dosage, and just keep giving it until your patient goes, "Okay, that's enough." I mean, if you handed out, I don't know, morphine or something on that basis, there has to be a point where the prescribing doctor says, we've reached a number now that we're not too chilled about.
What's your view, if we can go down this at all, just on athletes? So it's like people at the Olympics, like high level athletes, maybe people even at the top of high rocks. Do you think that a lot of them are using stuff like performance enhancing drugs at all, or?
Yes, I do, and it's a really interesting one because I don't quite know how I feel about it. I mean, it's interesting. I grew up in the kind of the Ben Johnson era, and this kind of roller coaster of oh, we caught Ben Johnson, so everyone else was clean. And then 10 years later, you find out, no, everyone in that, if we actually gave the gold medal to the person that was the clean one in that race, it's the guy that came in ninth or whatever. I mean,
He was so slow though.
yeah, well, I can remember because I forget who was in, Carl Lewis was next. I remember they did a thing a few years afterwards where they basically said all the guys that have now been popped, for PEDs in that particular race, it would literally be the guy that was in sixth or seventh that would be the gold medal if we did it that way. So I kind of grew up almost just thinking, oh, yeah, they probably all are. I mean, the Lance Armstrong story is a good one.
Yeah.
Lance was, but then so was everybody else.
Yeah.
So I've never competed at a high level myself, so I have no kind of personal grudge to bear against someone that might have beaten me. So I assume that they probably are, and it's just a cat and mouse game that just goes on forever between WADA and the people that are competing. Where it gets interesting is in, especially for me, is in stuff like High Rocks or Ironman. No, I've done Ironman, but I'm thinking of sports, CrossFit, that have a huge age group component.
Yes.
And that's where it gets very interesting. I mean, I can speak about High Rocks because you've done High Rocks, haven't you?
Yeah, I just did Manchester.
Actually, that would have been very recent. Yeah. How did you get on? What do you think of it as a bodybuilder? What was that like?
It was tough. I did 73 minutes and 6 seconds, which I wasn't happy with. I'm doing Glasgow just so I can get under 7 minutes.
Did you run open or pro?
Open.
73 minutes and open. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But I'll definitely go sub 78 Glasgow. I definitely need to know. So.
Yeah, in open, I mean, in my mind, once you're going under 70 in open, that's pretty good. I forget what I did. I think I did a 72 in open, but then went up to pro. And it got interesting for me because I was then running in pro.
Yeah.
And I was doing sort of 75s in pro at 50, and that's putting me on the podium nearly everywhere. Yeah, and then, I didn't do Manchester, interestingly. And actually, this is a good example. I didn't do Manchester because I was feeling rough and just didn't go and do it. Had I gone feeling rough, I'd have been first place because the person that won in Manchester, there was a bunch of guys in my age group, but the fastest was a 1 hour 23.
Right.
And I just smoked that. I mean, just without even trying.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I didn't go because having put up a TRT video recently, it would have been a complicated issue, and it's complicated even more so because High Rocks has no drug policy. I mean, people saying, "Oh, it's cheating." I might as well say, "Well, you're cheating because you're wearing a pink hat." I just don't like pink hats, so I'm going to call it cheating. I mean, if it's not in the rules, it's not in the rules.
100%.
However, there probably should be a rule somewhere, but I don't know how you implement it because do you want, if you're High Rocks, to ban someone like me?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not an elite athlete. I'm quite good. I'm good for the sport.
Yeah.
And I've sent more than a couple of people to High Rocks. Would catching me out because I got a podium and they decide to start testing podium winners, would that be beneficial to the sport? I don't know.
I think it'd be so point like mass participation, which is what High Rocks is. It's like to start banning people. Even I think at like a high level, like if there's someone that's Hunter McIntyre, for example, for the sake of a random name, imagine banning him because he took something. Like you're screwing you're screwing High Rocks over by doing that. Really.
Yes, I mean you are. I mean what's interesting is that I never quite understand High Rocks' fascination with its elite athletes and Hunter in particular. I mean Hunter is, if you ask anybody at YouTube, at High Rocks, who do you know from in the sport? Who's your famous High Rockser? He, if anybody, is the only name that really comes up. Yes. Unless you happen to really be into the sport, then you'll reel off a few more. But Hunter, I don't quite know why they focus on it. Only because it's not why most people go to High Rocks. Most people aren't going to High Rocks because of Hunter McIntyre. In fact, I mean, to use a personal example, the most watched High Rocks YouTube video on YouTube is my wife running around and doing average.
Really?
It's not, because actually that's what people watch and go, hey, we could do that too, and off they go. Yeah. You don't watch Hunter do, and I know Hunter, and what he does is, and he coached me for a while, incredible athlete, but not very relatable.
Absolutely.
Unless you're also running 56-minute High Rocks pros.
Yeah, well, a prime example that we had a group chat from everyone from my gym that was going to do High Rocks. and I was post the Hunter set a world record, and it was just who's Hunter?
Yeah.
So like you say, it's
You should say Mark Lewis has dropped a new High Rocks video though, and they'll be all over it.
literally who would know?
So it's an interesting one. I think the solution for sports I think what High Rock's solution is, if they introduce drug testing, is that they only test the world championships. I think the other suggestion I've heard is we'll just test the podium winners. But the trouble with that is, I've seen some events run in places in Europe, smaller events, newer events that don't get the numbers.
Yeah.
And in the older age groups, it's quite possible that you'll have one person racing, or maybe two people racing in that age group, and they're both new to sport. So you got a guy that goes and runs a 2.5 hour High Rocks, drags his ass around this thing, does an incredible achievement, stands on the podium, and then says, "Oh, yeah, I've been on TRT because I was suicidal for 5 years, and it saved my life." And they go, "Oh, well, bad luck, pee in this, and you're now banned."
Yeah,
that achieves nothing. So it's a very, very tricky one. But equally, you've got people like me. I never trained to the extent where, and this is an interesting thing with TRT and sports like Ironman and so on. I mean, Ironman in particular, they hate it because of their cycling history of drugs. Those guys. If you ever go on an Ironman forum and say, "Hey, I do TRT," anyone got a problem with that? You're in a world of you'd be better off going to some burglar. Really? They hate it. But it's an interesting one because you have got these guys in their 40s and their 50s, and TRT does help. If you train crazy with dead level testosterone levels, there's no question it helps you.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I've never ever trained that hard. People say we train twice a day sometimes. But I wake up, train, sleep, train, sleep, go to bed. Someone that's doing a 9 to 5 as a postman is probably doing more energy expenditure than me. If I wanted to, I could train like a lunatic though, and it would start to kick in and help.
Yeah.
And so it's a complicated one. I don't know the answer. I mean, I'm glad I'm not High Rocks because, or indeed any sport like that, because the alternative is you did a CrossFit route where they have a policy, and even the elite guys there just do what they can to get around it.
There was a guy actually out. It'd be really interesting for you to get on here. He's called Liam Collins. He's over 40. He's Commonwealth gold medalist, 60-meter hurdles.
Right.
And if you've got some time, watch a program called The Dark Side. What he said, it comes down to who's got the best doctors to hide it. He says what it comes down to at that elite level. And he's exposed all kinds. It'd be interesting to get on here.
Oh, it's like I think it was Nate Diaz, wasn't it, in MMA, who was asked, who's on drugs, and he was like, everyone's on drugs. Stephen, it's been awesome talking to you. I mean, you have so many interesting things. I could talk to you all day about any of them. But we've certainly hit on the ones I wanted to. And it's always nice to be able to talk about topics like this. Actually, all the things we've spoken about openly. Which does nothing but provide information that's genuinely, hopefully, at least useful to people. And so many people nowadays don't do it. And again, I know why, absolutely. But it's frustrating they don't. So thank you for coming on. It has been an absolute pleasure.
No problem. The absolute pleasure, Mark. I've enjoyed myself. And like I say, anytime you want me back, then definitely.
Superb. Excellent. Look forward to it. Take care now.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.